In the case of Zimbabwe, formerly known as Southern Rhodesia, the process of scramble and partition occurred during the late 19th century when British colonizers, led by Cecil Rhodes and his British South Africa Company, claimed control over the region. The partitioning and subsequent colonization had several key stages. The British South African Company was granted a royal charter by the British government in 1889 to explore and settle in the region, which was then inhabited by indigenous African groups such as the Shona and Dembele people. Cecil Rhodes, in 1890, British South African Company established the first permanent European settlement in the region, later called Fort Salisbury, which is now known as Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe. In 1895, Southern Rhodesia was formally established as a British colony under the British South African Company, with the British government maintaining indirect control. The indigenous African population were subjected to land expropriations, forced labor and systematic marginalization, while the Europeans controlled the best agricultural lands and economic resources. During the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, European powers formalized their territorial claims in Africa, creating borders that disintegrated the social and cultural system of indigenous African societies. Zimbabwe became part of the British sphere of influence, along with neighboring colonies like South Africa and Zambia. The partitioning and colonization led to the disruption of indigenous economies, culture, and political structures. Zimbabwean societies faced displacement from their ancestral lands, forced labor, and harsh discriminatory policies that favored European settlers. These conditions contributed to several uprising and resistance movements, such as the Matabele War of 8 to 18, in which the Dembele people fought against the British settlers. The impact of colonization in Zimbabwe extended well into the 20th centuries. The country became a focal point for African liberation struggle, which culminated in the Zimbabwean War of Liberation of 1966 to 1979, leading to the country's independence in 1980 under the leadership of Robert Mugabe and the Zimbabwe African National Union. One of the most devastating consequences of the British colonization in Zimbabwe was the large-scale land dispossession of indigenous European settlers, especially those who aligned with the British South Africa Company, who used the land for mining and other commercial ventures. Africans were subjected to forced labor on the lands that were taken from them. Many of them worked under harsh conditions on the settlers' farms, in the mines or infrastructure projects, and they were often paid poorly or not paid at all. This economic exploitation was designed to benefit the colonial rulers and settlers while keeping the indigenous population in poverty. The colonial period saw the introduction of Western legal, education, and social system, all of which marginalized indigenous customs and practices. English was established as the official language, and European values regarding land ownership, religion, and governance were imposed. Christian missionaries, as part of the colonial project, played a significant role in reshaping the social fabric of Zimbabwe. They established schools, churches, and clinics, but also worked to undermine indigenous beliefs and practices. This later led to the slow erosion of cultural identity for many African communities. The colonial economy encouraged Africans to migrate to urban centers to work in mines as laborers. This migration contributed to the breakdown of traditional social structures and the creation of an urban working classes. Resistance to British colonial rule began soon after the British South Africa Company's arrival in Zimbabwe. The first major conflict was the First Matabele War of 1893, when the Ndebele people, led by King Lobengula, fought the British invaders. The British won and the Ndebele kingdom was absorbed into the colonial system. The Second Matabele War, also known as the Matabele Rebellion, was an indigenous uprising against colonial forces in response to land dispossession, forced labor, and the erosion of local authority. After World War II, the political landscape began to change as nationalist movements emerged, inspired by broader decolonization movements across Africa. The Zimbabwe African National Union and the Zimbabwe African People's Union, led by figures such as Joshua Nkomo and Robert Mugabe, began to push for independence and an end to white minority rule. These movements were shaped by earlier resistance and aimed to restore land to the indigenous people and establish majority rule. The British South Africa Company heavily invested in Zimbabwe's mineral wealth, particularly in gold, platinum, and other minerals. These industries were developed with the primary aim of benefiting Britain and its settlers. The native African population was exploited as a cheap source of labor with little to benefit from the resources extracted. The settler economy was also reliant on large-scale agriculture, especially in areas like tobacco, cotton, and maize. Again, African laborers were forced to work on European-owned farms, but the profits went primarily to settlers and the British colonial government, reinforcing economic inequalities. One of the most significant laws passed during colonial rule was the Land Apportionment Act of 1930, which formalized the racial segregation in land ownership. The act divided the land into areas designated for white settlers and native reserves for the African population. This institutionalized land dispossession, restricting Africans to less fertile and less economically viable land. The racial policies of the British colonial government encouraged a system of inequality that would last well beyond independence. Africans were denied political rights, economic opportunities, and social mobility. The imposition of such policies created a deeply unequal society with a small white minority controlling the economy and political power, while the majority black population was neglected to the margins of the society. The struggle for Zimbabwe's independence became a protracted armed conflict following the rejection of political and economic reforms by the white minority government led by Ian Smith. Smith's government unilaterally declared independence in 1965, but this move was not recognized internationally, and it led to a full-scale war of liberation. The Zimbabwe African National Union, led by Robert Mugabe, and the Zimbabwe African People's Union, led by Joshua Nkomo, were the main liberation movements that fought against Rhodesia's government. The liberation movement gained international support, especially from neighboring African countries and from the global community. This support helped to sustain the liberation struggle while economic sanctions were imposed on the white minority regime. The War of Liberation culminated in negotiations that led to the Lancaster House Agreement in 1979. This agreement paved the way for free and fair elections, which resulted in the country's first multiracial elections in 1980, leading to the formal independence of Zimbabwe and the establishment of Robert Mugabe as the country's first black prime minister. After independence in 1980, the issue of land redistribution became one of the most continuous topics in Zimbabwe. Mugabe's government initially focused on a slow and negotiated approach to land reform, eventually embarked on a controversial land reform program in the early 2000s. This led to the violent seizures of white-owned commercial farms, which caused significant economic disruption but also redistributed land to black Zimbabweans. Despite the early gains in education and healthcare post-independence, Zimbabwe has faced persistent economic challenges, especially in the 2000s, when hyperinflation and political instability plagued the nation. The country has also struggled with corruption and governance issues, contributing to a decline in living standards for many of its citizens. The colonial legacy of racial inequality, land dispossession, and economic dependence still resonates in Zimbabwe today. Many of the systematic challenges the country faces, including poverty, unemployment, and inequality, are directly linked to its colonial past.